What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. This is the Black Monday recap show. I would say like a low key Black Monday for normal, relative to like last year and years in the past. Joining me to break it down, Ryan Wilson and John Breech. Gentlemen, what's up?
Breech so far, only Lovie and Kliff are looking for jobs, and we talked about Lovie. We talked about Lovie last night, Kliff this afternoon. So pretty slow going.
Kliff Kingsbury is 100% like already on a flight to Mexico. He's probably checked out. I'm fine. You guys have your Black Monday podcast, but I'm out of here.
I was telling somebody a few minutes ago. It's like trying to explain Black Monday and like how you have to do the work you have to do. Is like yeah, we basically have to discuss people losing their jobs and doing it. But you know, when you think about Kliff Kingsbury, look, I'll take the L. I said that I didn't think they would fire him. Ryan Wilson, you said it all along that they would. Rip the Band-Aid off. You don't even care how much it cost. You were right. You've been right about some stuff this year. Give you credit for that. At least two things.
Sounds like, according to Pro Football Talk earlier this afternoon, that Kliff's contract was through 2026. So they are having to. It ain't going to be a get out of jail free card for the Bidwells. So they're going to have to pay up,
right,
to pay for Kliff's trip to Mexico. There's Breech is talking about.
Well, that's the other part is I know, Brinson, you said we're talking about coaches losing their jobs, but these guys,
right, exactly.
Most of them have fully guaranteed contracts, so you don't have to feel overly sorry.
Well, that was a follow up I gave. It's like it's really awkward that we have to do this, but like here's a picture of this guy, and he's making $20 million to not work if he so chooses for the next 5 years. So, I mean, Kliff Kingsbury is going to be fine. I am still surprised that the Cardinals also, they didn't fire Steve Keim. Technically he resigned from his position. I think that's more a thing about loyalty than anything else. And we'll dive into all that. And I mean, look, I don't know where you go from here though, because like the Bidwell, you have billions because I think all but one, the Mark Davis, are billionaires in the NFL, but you have like you're spending. You just gave Steve Keim an extension. You just gave Kliff Kingsbury an extension. You just fired him after less than a year out from giving them said extensions, and you have a quarterback who you just gave an extension as well that also has a freaking had a homework clause in his contract that you took out because his agent and who's also Kliff's agent, which is a little weird, leaked it out to the public. He's got a torn ACL. I mean, where do the Cardinals go from here?
Breech?
I don't know.
I mean, when we had this kind of conversation earlier, I'll just give the concise version of what I said. And it's just that this is one of the toughest jobs to accept because you don't know what there is going forward. If you're an offensive-minded coach, you can't bring in your own quarterback because you have a franchise quarterback under contract, but he's not going to be available till week 3 or week 4 or week 5, but it's almost certain he's not going to be available at the beginning of the season. So you're already kind of behind the 8 ball because you don't have your own starting quarterback. And so it just feels like this doesn't seem like an enticing job because of that. So I think the Cardinals are in a tough situation here. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you got to figure out, and we talked about this earlier as well, is the coach going to be an offensive guy? Is it going to be more of a disciplinarian? We mentioned Brian Flores as a possibility in terms of just trying to get the house in order before you worry about the quarterback situation. And I talked about this with Rick Spielman just not too long ago on with the first pick about what you want to do. And Rick's like, you need to get the best football guy in there because the football team is a hot mess. Now, they have other draft picks. They have the number 3 overall pick. And, I don't think Sean Payton is a likely candidate, but Rick said this about the Broncos job. He said, listen, if you think, and he worked with George Payton for a quarter century, if you think that Sean Payton is the answer to unlocking Russ Wilson and getting this team going, you absolutely give up the number 5 pick or a first round pick, whatever that first round pick is.
Well, they don't.
They have a first round pick at the end. So you give up whatever first round pick that is, and you make that happen. So I was like, oh, okay. So I think depending on, and they don't have a general manager to make that decision in Arizona, but whoever ends up making those decisions, if they feel like there's a situation where Sean Payton can be coaxed into coming to coach and they think that he can solve the problem, it sounds like that you may have to make some tough decisions about your draft haul. But unlike the Broncos, who have a lot of pieces in place outside of the quarterback position, The Cardinals have holes up and down that freaking roster.
Yeah, I did Jim Rome show earlier and mentioned like just the idea of Sean Payton in Arizona. You do sort of wonder, like, so the GM situation is very much up in flux, or very much in flux, excuse me. You have the possibility of dual GMs has been floated, which I don't know, maybe don't do that, even though one of them, shout out NC State, Adrian Wilson, former Wolfpack legend and Arizona Cardinal great, is one of the candidates for that. I mean, look, I think if you're Arizona, would you give up a second round pick? I don't think you can give up a first round pick. Give up a second round pick for Sean Payton. And if you're Sean Payton,
the Saints apparently want a first round pick.
Right, but the Cardinals' second round pick is like, I mean,
it's 35, but
that's fair, right?
That's not Chase Claypool rich, but it's close.
I mean, the Broncos is 29. Like, I think 29 and 35. Obviously, there's a gap there, but
you get the 5th-year option with Sean Payton if you get him at 29.
That's true. Point being is the Cardinals aren't giving up. You're not giving up 3 for Sean Payton, right?
No. If he unlocks your team, I don't know.
I mean, and that's what it boils down to, because if you think that he's going to magically make Kyler Murray into a superstar top 3 quarterback, as Wilson said, Spielman said, that is what you do. So just how much do you trust that? But if you make that move and he doesn't flip things around, then you've just set your organization back a decade.
Let me ask you this. So JJ Watt's retiring and the Cardinals have the 3rd pick. Let's say they get Will Anderson at 3 or you get Sean Payton at 3. When you put it in those terms, Will Anderson ain't winning 11 games for you next year, no matter how good he is, and he should be really good. Sean Payton, all right. Well, I mean, there's a better chance.
You can't give up 3 for. I think 35 is fair.
I just told you. So you think Will Anderson is more valuable than Sean Payton?
You cannot give up the 3rd overall pick for the rights to a coach who would
then be. I'm the Saints general manager. I say thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Ching, hang up on you, and good night, sir.
You can call me back on draft night when you're desperate.
And you're already paying a coach and a GM to not work. Like, it ain't happening.
Yeah, but you also thought it made sense to pay this coach to stay around. Will Anderson isn't getting this team to the playoffs next year. Sean Payton, I think if you ask 100 people will tell you Sean Payton has a better chance than Will Anderson or Jalen Carter to get the
Sean Payton and Kyler Murray is a really intriguing option. I don't know, though, that given what we know about Kyler Murray, and look, again, I think it's a really intriguing option. But given what we know about Kyler Murray, given the situation with his contract, that clause that they put in there, the Call of Duty stuff, like that's like the anti-Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees and Sean Payton were like workaholic junkies who lived in the film room together. Is Sean Payton going to want to come in and try and make it like? I think Sean Payton's probably a better fit with Russell Wilson than Kyler.
Yeah, no, I think we all agree that. But we were having the Sean Payton conversation, and that's where it led us.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals are going to give up 3, and I don't think that, Kyler Murray and Sean. Like, I think Sean Payton is too rich for the Cardinals' blood, basically.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, but we were talking about it.
No. I know, and that's what we're.
Yeah,
I'm saying that, like, in a perfect world, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Now, on the other hand, they did fire Kliff. Like, has there been interest from Sean Payton? Because last night we saw there was somebody who was like, Kliff Kingsbury speaking with the Arizona media at 2 p.m.
Yeah, but they also said Lovie Smith had long conversations with Cal McNair in recent days, and then Cal McNair walked downstairs and fired him right before the 2-point conversion, according to my calculations.
Well, I think what happened is they had long conversations, and Cal McNair's like, I'm not so sure you're going to keep your job, and then Lovie's like, I'm going for 2, yo, and then Cal fired him. But I mean, point being is, if the Cardinals can land Sean Payton, good for you. I wouldn't give up the 3rd overall pick for it. I would do 35 for it. I think that's a fair compensation. If they give up 3 for Sean Payton, my take will be that he will succeed in Arizona. He will make Kyler Murray a infinitely better quarterback than he's been so far in his career, and that they paid too much for it. And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive.
Well, and that's the one thing you're going to be thinking about if you're the Bidwells is you watch a team like Jacksonville and you see what a disaster Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence were together, and that you flip around, get a good coach in there, and boom, now you're winning division, you're in the playoffs. And so that's what can happen. And that's why you might be willing to give up the 3rd overall pick if you think that kind of transformation can happen overnight. But it would be a lot to give up
Breach.
But
One of the
Breech
concerns
has
are
one. What?
are you going to trade the Cardinals to the AFC South because they have a lot of things to fix with very little resources, comparatively speaking, and they're not playing the freaking Colts twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. But, it's not like the NFC West is absolutely loaded right now. It's the 49ers, and second place feels very reachable if you have a smart offseason and you're the Cardinals. I think they're the worst team going into this offseason, but I think with enough right decisions and smart moves, they could be the second best team.
So it looks like the Cardinals are 10th according to Spot Track in terms of available salary cap space at $31 million now. A lot of that will change with the new league year in the coming weeks and yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, they have their draft picks. They have the third overall pick, which we just talked about. They should have some salary cap room. So, again, you get the right coach in there. You can turn things around relatively quickly, but it just feels like there are a lot of hurdles to clear. They don't have a general manager. The coach didn't work out. The quarterback's not going to be available till October, November.
What if, because you just said that, Wilson, what if the Saints call up, they're like, hey, Cardinals, how about we trade Kyler Murray for Sean Payton?
Oh, I do that in a heartbeat. And then you draft a quarterback.
And then Sean Payton getting his own quarterback. Then the Saints quarterback situation, they at least can play with it. And boom, one-on-one. No draft picks given up, just player.
That's kind of interesting.
Would the Saints do that, though? They have Andy Dalton, I mean. Would they want to get downgraded to Kyler Murray?
Andrew Gregory.
Hey, Jameis Winston. Hey, by the way, you picked the Saints to win the Super Bowl this year, Wilson? Is that true?
No, I didn't. They can win the division.
Sure about that?
I'm 100% sure.
Maybe it's like you picked a long shot to win the Super Bowl. You're like, well, I'm just saying. It was a Jameis Winston joke. So here's the thing that I worry again with Sean Payton. It's like the Cardinals. By the way, the Cardinals statement, they're like, we've relieved Kliff Kingsbury's duties. In addition, Steve Keim is stepping away for health-related reasons. It's like you just like can we not with these thank you coach like tweets, and can we just get down to brass tacks with this? You're paying these guys millions of dollars. You fired them.
It is funny they tiptoe around like the word usage.
Right. It's like relieved of his duties. You fired the guy. You just paid him a butt ton of money. It's okay to fire him. You fired him.
It's the equivalent of the unconscious uncoupling.
What does that mean?
That's I don't know what it means, but that's the deepest thing Breech has ever said.
You must have just read that on you have one of those word day calendars.
I can't remember. Two celebrities broke up and they called it a conscious uncoupling.
It sounds like something Gwyneth Paltrow would do. Gwyneth Paltrow would yeah. This is very on brand of me, but it's like if you go to boarding school and you're basically kicked out, you're not invited back.
Yep, it was Gwyneth, and she said it when she split with Chris Martin.
Wow, Chris. They named their kid Apple. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Unconscious uncoupling?
No, it's a conscious uncoupling.
Brinson, I'll ask you what I asked Breech earlier. I'm going to go down a list of teams, and you tell me whether they finish above or below the Arizona Cardinals next year, knowing what we know now. And just for reference for people who didn't hear the Kliff Kingsbury pod, Arizona finished 15 out of 16 teams in the NFC. They won 3 football games. So the Chicago Bears, higher or lower than the Cards next year?
I'll take the issue is the Kyler ACL. I mean, Kliff even said
like all I need is one word.
Brenton, this is a 5-second exercise. Yes or no?
Higher or lower the Chicago Bears finish?
Lower.
Okay. The LA Rams.
This is a lot of factors in here. Higher.
Atlanta Falcons.
I'd say the Rams are higher than the Cardinals.
That's right. The Atlanta Falcons.
Higher.
The New Orleans Saints.
Higher.
And then after that, it feels like it's pretty obvious. Carolina, Green Bay, Washington, Detroit are the other teams that didn't make the playoffs. So again, they're 15 out of 16.
And their very frugal ownership group is contemplating using Quentin Harris, their former VP of player personnel, and Adrian Wilson, their VP of pro personnel, in a dual GM role. I've never heard of anybody doing a double, like 2 GMs doing one job. That's a terrible idea. It never worked. It's never, has it ever worked for any of them? No. But
I feel like it would be better. It would be an upgrade over Steve Keim, who said some things going on. It feels like the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying, like, you need, if you're trying to replace your general manager with 2 people already in your building and having them both be kind of GMs, Like you are asking for disaster. And if they do that, that's also a situation where you really narrow your. I actually, you know what I think the Cardinals end up doing, because I think that they're cheap. I keep saying frugal. I'm dancing around it too. Frugal. They're cheap because I think they're cheap, and because I think they're paying Kliff and they're paying Keim right now. I think they end up hiring Vance Joseph as their head coach and promoting Quentin Harris and Adrian Wilson to dual GM jobs and save a bunch of money for at least a year, maybe 2 years. And I think it's a disaster, and it won't end well. That's my theory on what will happen with the Cardinals. And maybe I will change my mind on the Bears. Maybe the Bears finish higher.
And we talked about Vance Joseph a little bit earlier, just that I think that would be a bad hire, just in the sense of, if you are cleaning house and you are getting rid of Kliff Kingsbury and you are getting rid of Steve Keim, I am not promoting from within. I am bringing in fresh blood to coach the team. So I am just saying, I'm telling the coaching staff, look, we love you all, but you're gone. We're going to hire a coach and let them bring in someone else.
What was my counter to that, Breech? You remember that salient point that I made?
What was it?
Steve Wilkes in Carolina, who ironically was run out of town for 1 year in Arizona. He turned around that Matt Rule crumpled khaki looking outfit and made him 6-6 in their final 12 games.
He did, but he did that with a new team, fresh blood, got out of the.
But he was on the staff.
Maybe the Cardinals are the problem and not the coach.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
The Houston Texans. Which job would you rather have, the Texans or the Cardinals?
Texans.
Jeez.
I don't know. They're both not great. Texans have 2 first-round picks, so that's something, including the number 2.
I just feel like as the Texans, you're in an easier division, easier way to build a winner.
You're closer to Cincinnati, which is also important.
That's also true.
I got some hair on today. Feel the
Grandma's hair's back.
I don't know, man. The Texans have look again. If we need to not beat around the bush here. The Texans fired David Culley after 1 year, a minority coach. They then attempted to hire Josh McCown, who's never coached at any level above high school, former, obviously well-respected guy around the NFL, former NFL quarterback. Then, when there was so much pushback publicly, they decided to hire Lovie Smith, their defensive coordinator, under David Culley, and then they fired him. Now, the interesting thing about, David Culley and Lovie Smith, both minority coaches, both fired after 1 year from an organization that, look, I don't know about Cal McNair, but his dad certainly had some interesting moments as it relates to, racial issues. So, remember he said the inmates, or he said, the inmates are running the asylum? Are you talking about NFL players? Oh, great. So, do the Texans have, the Texans have a lot of problems. Do the Texans have I don't know what the word, an HR issue? Or what? What do we think here?
No, I don't think so. I think, David Culley was the sacrificial lamb, whether he were white, black, or, purple. And I think Lovie Smith feels like a panic move. He's a safe move. He's a guy you can hire that people will respect immediately. And I get the sense that probably both coaches were hired with the understanding that this might be a one-and-done deal unless you win the Super Bowl. Is it right? No. Is it telling when someone like Tony Dungy has to tweet out basically, what the hell are we doing? Tony doesn't say naughty words, but that's what he was implying in this tweet after they fired Lovie Smith. And it's a fair question to ask, but I think the bigger takeaway for me is that Cal McNair is a goob. He doesn't know how to run that team. And that has manifested itself year after year, which is sort of funny to say in a post-Bill O'Brien world, which is, something I didn't think I would be saying. They moved on from Jack Easterby over the course of the middle of the season. There was a lot of tension between Jack Easterby and the fan base. Nick Caserio, the GM from the Patriots organization, he may be great at his job, but I have yet to see the fruits of that labor. And they have 2 first-round picks, and it looks like Caserio will get an opportunity to hire his third head coach, which is rare for some GMs, especially GMs that have been there, fewer than 3 years, and they'll have to draft a quarterback. So I don't know how much longer Caserio is going to last. I don't know how patient Cal McNair is. There are a ton of questions, and I think more of it, a lot of times, over the course of, me working forever, you get angry about things that happen and you think it's vindictiveness, and in reality, it's just incompetence. And I feel like with Cal McNair, it's probably more the latter than the former.
I mean, I mean, do you remember the video game story with Cal McNair? It was the Sage Rosenfeld's told and David Carr.
Yeah, you told us last night. Remember?
Yeah. So yeah.
I didn't know if you remember telling us, but you can
I mean, I'm assuming that the audience is different. I'm saying like that's. I tend to agree with you, and I think a lot of people are like the NFL is rigged. It's like no, actually, it's just stupid. They're just idiots. And
the Texans are the most dysfunctional front office going right now. I mean, we're not even talking about
a preacher for 3 years.
And Lovie Smith, remember that hire came out of nowhere. Brinson, you mentioned the Josh McCown thing. They had interviewed Brian Flores twice, and it sounded like it was going to be one of those two guys. But then they kind of got shamed out of hiring Josh McCown because, hey, you can't hire somebody who doesn't have any coaching experience, even though Jeff Saturday and Jim Irsay proved that is not correct, and you can do it if you really want to. And now Cal McNair is going to use that as his excuse to hire Josh McCown. But, that Lovie Smith, it was just bam. One day it was like, oh, Lovie Smith is the Texans head coach. Where'd that come from? And so I don't think that either coach took that job thinking they were going to last very long. I mean, it's one of those things you were set up to fail, except you got paid $7 million to fail. So you're like, all right, I'll suck it up. So I kind of agree with Ryan there. It's just, this is more that the organization is completely dysfunctional. And until I don't even know how you fix things, because it starts at the top of the owner. And, if he's playing video games with if he's playing Kyler Murray on Call of Duty, you're not getting anywhere. So I don't know what
they should trade for Kyler Murray. It's just,
really.
Kyler Murray can play a lot of Call of Duty. I mean, look, this team, since the start of 2020, has won 10 games. That is 3 years. They've won 10 games. And in that same span, they have been coached by they've had, including interim Romeo Crennel, 4 head coaches. Like, I don't know, Cal, maybe it's not the coaches. Maybe it's you.
So Jonathan Alexander of the Houston Chronicle tweeted this out. He said, Texans have put in requests to interview Lions OC Ben Johnson, Eagles DC Jonathan Gannon, 49ers DC DeMeco Ryans, as Breech likes to call him, Broncos DC Idro Evero, and then Eagles OC Shane Steichen. So those are all young and up-and-comers. There's no Lovie Smiths or Dan Quinn's or old-time coaches on that list. And maybe it's just a starting point. Maybe it's just for show. There are 2 minority candidates on that list. And, so we'll see. The list on paper looks great. The results could be a completely different story.
By the way, not to circle back to the Cardinals, but this is an unbelievable tweet. It's from somebody who's covers the Cardinals, appears to be verified, actual reporter, Johnny Venerable. I'm assuming this is real. If it's not, I wouldn't be surprised. Kyler Murray will have input on the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, per Michael Bidwell.
Well, that's a question I actually put to Breech. And Breech, what was your answer?
My answer was I would definitely talk to Kyler Murray. I would keep him looped in, but I would not let him have any say in who the coach is.
Do we know who are their Call of Duty characters? Like, I mean, it's
just like if Kyler Murray's not going to be on the field for the first few weeks of the season, and then what if his injury lingers and he can't? I mean, look at Odell Beckham. He tore his ACL in February, didn't play a single down this year, didn't sign with anyone. These injuries can last. You don't know when they're going to be back. You have this range. Maybe it's 8 months, maybe it's 10 months, but you don't know. And so, you're letting this quarterback have say, even though they might not be there. I mean, he's going to be there. He's going to be on the team, but he might not be on the field when the new coach takes over. So it's just a weird dynamic.
Simon Ghost Riley, your 2023 Arizona Cardinals head coach.
Who's that?
I just Googled Call of Duty characters.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, yeah, the Texans are a hot mess.
And Breech put in Slack that it is confirmed by someone sitting in front of a Cardinals banner that looks to be quite official from.
That's Michael Bidwell.
So there you go.
I don't know. He looks weird without a goatee. Interesting. Okay. Let's take a break.
There he is.
Wait, he looks weird without facial hair.
Including Tyler, and spoken with a number of leaders already. Well, we're in communication, and we should be talking later today. We texted and either today or tomorrow, and so absolutely want to get the input of our leaders, including Kyler, and spoken with a number of leaders already.
There you go.
Yo, this guy, Michael Bidwell, is flying solo on this head coaching hire. And he's like, I'm just going to ask Kyler. This is going to go so poorly.
Well, and the other part is that, remember, before all the Deshaun Watson stuff got crazy, that he wanted some say in who the Texans were going to hire during one of those cycles, and the Texans didn't listen to him, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. And everything, I mean, everything was going downhill, and then it was like you're on. And
remember, Breech, things ended quite well for Deshaun Watson, so that's a good thing Michael Bidwell's taking notice of that.
Unbelievable. All right, let's take a break. What a mess this team is. My God. We come back. More coaching chatter next. So, actually did lose the rundown now. Terrible by me. Which midseason? I'm kidding. I found it. Which midseason firing between the Denver Broncos, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Carolina Panthers? Which one of those openings, Ryan Wilson, is most attractive to you? You're Sean Payton. You are the belle of the ball, the prettiest lady at the dance, the best hair on the podcast. You can pick wherever you want to go. Which job are you taking?
Well, if the starting point for conversations is having a quarterback, I mean, that narrows the list down pretty quickly to the Denver Broncos, even though, well, what?
I mean, at least you have
the other problem is, to your point, I mean, let me check my current updated list of draft order. If the Saints do indeed want a first-round pick, the Colts have pick number 4, and you are not coming off that. It sounds like if you're Jim Irsay, Mr. Brinson, and the Panthers have pick number 9, and David Tepper ain't coming off that unless the plan is to get Derek Carr before you get Sean Payton in order to entice Sean Payton there to have the quarterback. So I think Denver is the landing spot, because then you give up that 29th pick as we sit here, which belonged to the 49ers via the Dolphins, and maybe that makes it a little more attractive. But also, I don't know who said this. I don't know if it was anyway, wherever I heard it. I guess Strahan asked Sean Payton yesterday on Fox, and Sean said there's a 70% chance he's sitting next to Strahan next year. So make it that what you will. My point is that maybe he sits out a year if he doesn't find the right opportunity, because he don't need that job. And, as we've been talking about, he's got plenty of money in the bank from all the years he's coached quite successfully. So why take on a burden when you can try to in your words, try to outlast Brandon Staley and then go take that job whenever that thing goes sideways in LA.
It's not a bad point.
Yeah, if I'm Sean Payton, I'm choosing between those two jobs. I'm taking my black permanent marker. I am scratching out the Colts because I am not going to Indianapolis.
Right.
And then I am thinking and giving a long, hard thought between Carolina and Denver. Because, again, if Tom Brady leaves Tampa Bay, which seems like it's going to happen, I feel like the Panthers are the most talented team in the NFC South, but they don't have a quarterback. Well, you're Sean Payton. Maybe you bring Tom Brady to Carolina. Maybe you
that's what I was gonna say.
You get a little crazy, but you can go out and maybe you get Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe you get Baker Mayfield, who was already in Carolina but didn't work. Well, I mean, if Sean Payton likes him, but it's one of those things where if Sean Payton,
maybe Drew Brees, Carolina.
I don't think.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Wait, I'm showing back up dressed as Sir Perf if the Panthers get Sean Payton and Tom Brady. You talk about like somebody leaping back onto a bandwagon like that.
You never left. You act like you have left because they're not very good, but you go on and off. You have one leg on that thing as it's going around the corner and you're hanging on for dear life. By the way, our
hanging on for dear life like he did on his scooter at the draft.
Right. Rude. Hanging over dear life, I just fell off.
By the way, in terms of the Colts coaching job, our buddy Greg Doyle just wrote in the Indy Star that Jeff Saturday wants the coaching gig permanently, and he might get it.
All right. So if I'm picking, I agree with Breech. I think Carolina is the best choice.
I didn't say the best choice. I would say it would be 1A Denver, 1B Carolina. I just said those are the two I would consider against. I would eliminate Indianapolis, and
you're going to have to give up the number 9 pick.
But real quick, as Will McLean pointed out in the chat, that how likely would the Saints be to make an interdivisional trade and send Sean Payton to a division rival?
For number 9, would you do it, Breech?
If I thought Sean Payton could win a Super Bowl for me, yes.
No, if you're the Saints, would you take the 9th overall pick for a division rival?
I think the 9th pick might be enough to make me do it.
Yes, yeah. You take, because like I always think that's sort of like underrated in terms of people talking about interdivisional trading. Like you're taking away a possible superstar from your division rival and putting him on your team. Like, I mean, who's going ninth to the Panthers in your latest mock? You mentioned
it's not a quarterback. It's Quentin
Right.
Johnson, the wide receiver out of TCU, who's a
That
great
dude
player.
is a stud.
But you need a quarterback to throw him the ball. And
No, but I'm just saying, like, I mean,
no, he's absolutely a stud.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I were the Saints and I don't think Sean Payton would do that to the Saints, because I don't think Sean Payton has any interest in coaching against the Saints twice a year and being in their division. Like, I think he knows how he's perceived in New Orleans. They love him. That's where he lived for, like a decade plus and coached. He won a Super Bowl there. I would be really, really surprised if he took that job, or even if the Saints were willing to do that trade, if he took that job. So, and then, by the way, how about Jim Harbaugh? It's like begging,
Which part?
begging Dave. He's like, Jonathan Jones on Sunday. He's like calling Tepper for weeks. Finally, Tepper's like, fine, dude, we can have a meeting.
Just stop calling me.
Yeah, just please, Jim, stop.
I wonder if it's one of those things where he sees David Tepper on the corner just handing out money to people. He's like, yo, as long as you're handing that money, what do you think we talk? And maybe Tepper's changed his ways.
I think Harbaugh perceives the Carolina job as like a leverage point to raise interest from the Colts and the Broncos and other possible. Because I mean, look, if there's only going to be, and we'll get to this in a second, but like if there's only going to be 5 openings, and there'll probably be 1 more, 2 more. 5 is really, really low for a coaching class. Like and you have Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh out there, both kind of jockeying for spots. Sean Payton a little more of a safety net because he's got the TV job. Jim Harbaugh's got the NCAA sanctions possibly coming down on Michigan. I don't think I have to worry about that next year, but I mean, he could definitely stay at Michigan for 1 more year. I'm just saying they have safety spots.
So let me ask you this comment from Brian J there that Billy just had on the screen. Why are we giving Sean Payton all this hype? How do you do without Breeze? And I think that's a fair point. I think the follow-up is that's why Sean Payton wants to go somewhere where Justin Herbert like quarterback is on the team, because I don't think it matters who you are. And we've seen Bill Belichick struggle without Tom Brady. You can go down the list of guys. If it's a franchise quarterback here or a Hall of Fame coach, I think you always go with the franchise quarterback. Anyone disagree with that?
It's always we're guaranteed as a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just mean like a not like a 2022.
Let me ask you this: how many games does Sean Payton win in Washington this season?
Probably not.
They went 8-1, which feels like a Super Bowl victory as far as I'm concerned.
Probably 9 max.
Maybe we're 9-8. That's right. So he's worth a half a game,
right?
Without a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, although some people think if they started Sam Howell from Jump Street, maybe they win 17 games.
Maybe.
Sean Payton had 4 losing seasons in New Orleans. Went 10-6 his first year, 7-9, 8-8 the next 2. Proceeded to win double digits, and they went 7-9 3 straight years. And then they had an incredible 2017 draft with Kamara, Ryan Ramczyk, Marshawn Lattimore.
Hendrickson was in that draft class.
Yeah, flipped everything around and really changed the trajectory of the franchise. 9-8 his final year. Got out and won 63% of his games. I think he's a great coach. I think he's one of the 5 best offensive minds of the last 25 years.
Well, I think that's the other thing, that when you get Sean Payton, you might have a couple 7-9s in there or whatever, 7-10s now or 8-9s. But he, at the other end, when you're winning football games, he's going to win you 1 or 2 or 3 games that you might not win with just an average, with a Mike McCarthy, for example, out there coaching you up.
Well, and I think too, it's worth noting that, like, man, those 2017 through 2020, 11, 13, 13, and 12 wins, they had, I can't remember if it was 17 through 19 or 18 through 20, but like 3 of the most backbreaking bad playoff beats, like an OT loss to Kyle Rudolph and Kirk Cousins. You had the Rams, the Rams get the pass interference Rams game and then another
the Minneapolis Miracle.
The Minneapolis Miracle, right? I mean, just all.
Shout out Rick Spielman.
Shout out to Rick Spielman. Yeah. All right. Of the teams in the playoffs, and we all know who they are, right? I don't need to list them all.
No.
14 of them. Who? 14 teams. I know. Almost 15. The NFL had its way. Which team is most likely to be hiring a head coach within the next month, or be seeking to hire a head coach?
Breech, you can go first because I know what my answer is going to be.
I'm probably going to steal your answer. I'm going to
We're
say
all going to say the Bengals, aren't we?
the Cincinnati, not the Bengals, the Dallas Cowboys. I just think that if the Cowboys flop on Monday night against the Buccaneers, that Jerry Jones will give some very serious thought to firing Mike McCarthy, especially with how this team has looked down the stretch. I mean, nobody, this is not going to be an easy game to pick, whether you're picking the Cowboys or the Buccaneers. But if you do pick Dallas, you cannot feel comfortable with them. I mean, this is a team that barely beat the Houston Texans. That is kind of when their run of just not looking good started with that 54-19 win against the Colts, which sounds absurd, but that game was 21-19 in the fourth quarter before, the wheels fell off the Colts wagon. But since then, it's been close game, 2 losses, barely beat a Titans team that was starting Josh Dobbs, who had only been on the roster for 8 days. You beat Gardner Minshew, an Eagles team that had Gardner Minshew. Like, yay, good job.
3rd round pick, Gardner Minshew.
Maybe Sean Payton will trade a 3rd round pick away for Gardner Minshew. We'll see. But yeah, so the Cowboys are just falling apart down the stretch, and it feels like if they lose on Monday night, I would not be surprised at all if Jerry Jones is handing out pink slips at some point next week.
Breech, or Brinson, either one of you, does Dak Prescott count as a franchise quarterback if you were Jerry Jones calling Sean Payton?
Yes.
Okay.
If the Cowboys lose a humiliating game in the playoffs in Tampa Bay to a 45-year-old Tom Brady quarterbacking an 8-9 Buccaneers team.
Oh, don't talk down on that team. You love that team.
I love it. This is my Bucks.
Super Bowl.
Hashtag my Bucks.
Yeah, you're Bucks. Go ahead.
Bucks Bengals Super Bowl. That's what I think.
Brinson Bucks.
I got a Bucks Bengals Super Bowl ticket matchup 85-1. Highly recommend. So
go ahead. If they lose to the terrible Tom Brady,
if they get embarrassed by Tom Brady and this 8-9 Bucks team, and Sean Payton's like, "Hey Jerry," then I think there's a very good chance that they fire Mike McCarthy. On the other hand, Jerry is pretty stubborn. I think he likes Mike McCarthy.
Jerry's almost 80 though.
Yeah.
35-18. Is that an embarrassing loss or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jones being almost 80 adds to it because he wants to win a Super Bowl before he dies. That guy is going to do whatever it takes to win a Super Bowl.
Okay.
As soon as possible.
And didn't Dak end up leading the league in interceptions?
He was close, if not. He been 35-24.
Missing like 5 games.
Tied for the league leading interceptions. And fun fact, became the first quarterback in NFL history to miss at least 5 games and still lead the NFL in interceptions.
That is not fun.
That's a big talking point, especially after he laid a total egg against Washington.
Well, that's why I asked you, is he a franchise quarterback for Sean Payton?
Well, but
it all happens since he injured his thumb. And remember, Russell Wilson had surgery on his thumb and then struggled. It's not easy.
That's called the
your
breech.
Thumb is like, you need your thumb to grip the football.
I just want to clip Breech saying
precision grip.
You need your thumbs.
Okay, well, I'll ask it one more time.
Well, yes.
Does Dak qualify as a franchise quarterback?
I think under Sean Payton, what Sean Payton needs, yes.
Okay.
I think Sean Payton would get a lot out of Dak Prescott.
No, I agree. But it's been hard to watch. But again, Kellen Moore was supposed to be that dude. He ain't Sean Payton, but clearly there have been some struggles.
So the other team, I think that is obvious. So you can rule out the Chiefs. You can rule out the Eagles. You can rule out the Niners, the Bills.
Don't even say it. I can't wait for you to say this stupid thing you're about to say. Go ahead.
We have to rule everybody out. Just name the team.
Yeah.
The Chargers are the obvious team.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I agree.
Dude, if the Chargers get waxed by Jacksonville,
they're going to win that game.
Right.
I bet your hair plugs on it.
Oh, my God. I don't know.
Breech, if the Chargers win that game, you have to shave your head and get hair tattooed where your hair.
The Chargers are favored. Why would I make? You should have to make the ridiculous bet because I'm taking the underdog. I think Jacksonville will win the game.
Whenever Wilson has it at -3.5, -2.5.
No, I think it's at -1 now. Chargers are favored by 1.
That's crazy talk.
It's like if this team wins a close game playoffs, you have to shave your head and get hair tattoos. I think the Chargers. If Sean Payton, the reason why it won't happen. Again, cheap ownership, and Sean Payton wants $20 million a year, so you have to pay Brandon Staley to leave after he makes the playoffs, and then have to pay Justin Herbert this crazy contract where you got to put a bunch of money in escrow because of the guarantees, and then you have to give Sean Payton $20 million a year. I don't think the Chargers will do that. I think he would love that job. I think the two other teams that at least warrant mentioning, I don't think this is going to be the case because you rule out Minnesota, New York, first-year coaches. Jacksonville, first-year coach. Harbaugh, Baltimore out. Cincinnati, looks awesome. Again, Zach Taylor is actually and Zach Taylor had the whole thing in Buffalo. Zach Taylor's completely changed where he sits in the stratosphere of coaches based on that game alone. Seattle, if Pete Carroll retired, I don't think he will. I don't think that's the case. Make the playoffs, but just worth mentioning. And then Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles didn't do a great job this year. 8-9, you win the division. If they get smoked by the Cowboys and Tom Brady leaves, I don't think it's guaranteed that Todd Bowles sticks around.
No, that feels more likely to me than my dude Brandon Staley, which is just disrespect as far as I'm concerned.
There was also rumors about Mike McDaniel possibly being.
Yeah, it wasn't.
If they didn't make the playoffs.
My apologies to Albert Breer. It wasn't Albert Breer said that, as Brinson noted last night.
Yep.
Brinson's the official fact checker of this podcast.
About kick.com coverage on the Pick Six podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton?
Well, let me ask you this: Who doesn't want Sean Payton over Jim Harbaugh?
I don't know.
Would you rather Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh? I'd rather have John Harbaugh if we're talking about NFL coaches.
Definitely John Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a crazy guy.
I think Harbaugh's an interesting option.
I love Harbaugh.
I will say this, and Breech mentioned this earlier. I think Jim Harbaugh might be a better fit in Arizona just because he's so crazy and he has a knack for getting the most out of sort of random situations, especially like Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick both were really good under him. And maybe that's something that Kyler needs as opposed to a traditional offensive mind like Sean Payton obviously is.
Well,
the job that Jim Harbaugh did in San Francisco should not go fly under the radar. He came in, that 49ers team was middling, and he had them competing for championships from Jump Street with Alex Smith, who he completely QB makeover, and then brought Colin Kaepernick and he and Greg Roman, sort of launched, were part of launching the running quarterback,
designing an entire offense around their quarterback skill set.
Yes.
And that's what they did is Harbaugh took over for a 49ers team that went 6-10 in 2010. And then boom, they go to 3 straight NFC title games after that. So he's already proven he can turn a team around. He's never had a losing season as a head coach. And I would say going to 3 straight NFC championships is a pretty strong thing to have on your resume.
What are the concerns? Because part of the reason he left, I believe, I could be misremembering, was he couldn't get along with Jed York and the ownership.
And
is that something?
Trent Baalke.
So the new GM is going to have to be able to get along with an unconventional personality.
Harbaugh.
I think
Harbaugh's going to bring Harbaugh's. I think at this point, he seems kind of desperate, but you would think he would bring in his own GM. I think if you're getting Payton or Harbaugh, you're bringing in your own GM.
Did he bring in Trent Baalke?
No, but he was the first-time NFL head coach then.
I would be concerned about his ability to evaluate talent because there's a huge gap between coaching and. I mean, you might be great at it. I don't know, but there's a reason this team stinks. And I mean, Adrian Wilson's there. You mentioned Quentin Harris. So you said Quentin Harris?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's necessary. I'm not concerned about those guys being co-GMs. It might be a situation where Arizona needs 15 guys to be the general manager. That place is so dysfunctional. But I would be more concerned about Jim Harbaugh having full control as opposed to Vance Johnson getting the job with the co-GMs that we talked about earlier.
I couldn't see Harbaugh coexisting with Kyler Murray. So I'm not sure.
I want Harbaugh and Jim Irsay for 3 years.
I mean, that would
last 3 weeks. 3 years, no way. 3 weeks. Although they met last year.
They would win all 3 games, and then Harbaugh would just wear out his welcome.
Yeah. He may just quit too.
He's a nut job, man. All right, let's
drink
play
a gallon of milk and leave.
Let's play matchmaker real quick. 5 openings. We'll start with the first one that came open, Carolina. Don't worry about
Sean Payton. If I'm not worrying, I'm going Sean.
Okay, you got to worry about the division thing.
Okay, you lied to me. Okay, go ahead.
I didn't even finish my sentence.
What you said, don't worry. I didn't worry. What else?
Well, I mean, with Sean Payton, so I don't know what the answer for Carolina is.
It might be Jim Harbaugh, but I don't know if he and David Tepper could get along.
I gotta think it is Jim Harbaugh
because he's the guy that fixes. He's like Harvey Keitel's character in
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. He comes in, he fixes the mess, and then he leaves. He's not going to hang around for a long time.
The Wolf.
Yeah, the Wolf. Absolutely. Although he dresses much worse than the Wolf does. He doesn't wear shirts. But that might be a thing that would be his thing in Carolina. Show up on the sideline with no shirt on.
He's very popular in Charlotte.
So I'll go with Jim Harbaugh. Who do you want, Breech?
For Carolina?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with D'Amico Ryans.
Ooh.
I'm just going to, I think the Panthers defense is their strong suit right now. So I'm going to bring someone in and become one of those teams that can just let your defense get you to the playoffs and then hire a smart offensive coordinator who hopefully can figure something out at the quarterback situation.
I also think, and I was going to say Harbaugh too. I think I like D'Amico Ryans more because Tepper hired a guy from college last time and let him just run the place. And
whoever gets the job, please iron your clothes before the introductory press conference.
Harbaugh's khakis are always immaculately pressed.
There you go.
Pleated too. I'll throw out Steve Wilkes. Just roll it back.
Yeah, I was going to say when Breech mentioned D'Amico Ryans, if you're going to stick with defense, I mean, stick with the guy that took you to the dance, Breech.
Yeah. Also, if Tepper likes Scott Fitterer and Fitterer's going to be involved in searching for the head coach, like, you're as a GM, you're naturally going to push your owner away from hiring a guy who's going to fire you when he comes into town.
That also is the reason why I think the Chargers don't move on from Brandon Staley, because if Sean's coming in, Telesco is going to have to hit the bricks too. So I think that's a conversation that.
Very good point.
All right, who's next?
Indianapolis. Saturday night, so right.
Did you name a name? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just mentioned our buddy Greg Doyle thinks Jeff Saturday. He wants the job, he knows, but he thinks he might be in line for it. I don't know. This feels like Breech. Is this job worse than the Cardinals job?
Yes.
I feel like it might be.
Yes.
Yeah. The Cardinals have Kyler. You have a franchise quarterback to kind of build around.
And the Colts have Jim Irsay.
Yeah, well,
he fired his coach midseason after making him bench Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger. Then proceeded to hire an ESPN analyst who played for his team several years ago with no head coaching experience, brought him in, allowed him to play Matt Ryan. And
maybe they should hire.
Maybe Jeff Saturday's the answer.
Maybe they hire Jeff Saturday, David Culley, and Lovie Smith to try coach. And then just fire them all at the third of the way through the season and fire another one. I don't know what the answer is. Like, I wouldn't want to subject to Brian Flores to this. I think we talked about him earlier as being a good candidate in some landing spots. D'Amico Ryans is absolutely, you don't want that as that's one of those things where if you pull a Josh McDaniels and say, no, I'm going to pull my name out because this ain't a good fit for me or anyone on planet Earth. Dan Quinn, could Dan Quinn win there?
I'm not sure if I want that if I'm Dan Quinn. He's been kind of biding his time to get a good job.
If I'm taking a second job, it's like I'm taking my second. You're taking this job if you really need to get that job. Dan Quinn can kick it and have a good defense for another year. All right.
Let me ask you this.
I'm throwing Harbaugh. That's my pick for the Colts.
I think Harbaugh's a good choice too. All right. Denver.
Sean
Payton.
Wait, somebody? Yeah. Are we all three on Sean? I think Sean Payton for the Denver.
Houston Texans. I think D'Amico Ryan's a good choice for Houston. I mean, he might be the big honor there. He's definitely a Pro Bowler for the Texans.
As Breech mentioned, Brian Flores interviewed there twice, so I don't know if he can go back to that well. But D'Amico seems certainly like a reasonable option for sure. He may get hired. I mean, look, if Jeff Saturday breaks the dam of inexperienced coaches getting head coaching jobs, maybe that paves the way for Josh McCown.
Anything, Breech?
Shane Steichen. That's my pick.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And finally, the Arizona Cardinals.
I don't hate Brian Flores there either, as we talked about earlier. I think Kyler needs
that is a good ex-girlfriend hire too, where you go and get the Brian Flores is the total opposite of Kliff Kingsbury.
Kyler needs structure,
disciplinary guy.
And I think, as Breech mentioned about a previous job, you get maybe the Carolina job, you get someone in there who can coordinate up the offense and is good for Kyler. But Kyler has to make sure he understands the rules. Because here's the situation I can't envision. Kyler coming off the field telling Brian Flores to calm the F down. Like, that feels like that happens once, and then you end up picking yourself off the grass after you get punched in the face by your head coach.
All right. Finally. Oh, you got somebody, Breech?
Frank Reich.
That's a good one, too.
That's a good one.
I just wonder if he has the discipline in place to handle the personality that could be a conflict.
All right. Let us rank the head coaching jobs 1 to 5. I think I have a list in my head.
Let's start at 5. Let's start with the worst one. What's the worst one?
I think the Colts is the worst job.
I think it's the Colts as well. Breech.
Yep.
And look, I mean, I don't know who needs to hear this. Probably Jim Irsay. He's the reason it's the worst job.
Yeah, he can't
If
stay.
you if you replace when you've got when you're the cause for your head coach vacancy being the worst opening of 5 available, and David Tepper and Cal McNair and Michael Bidwell are in charge of 3 of the other ones, and like that means that you're maybe throwing a little people off the scent when it comes to your job.
All right, what's 4?
I think.
What do you have?
I think
Texans.
I was going to say Houston feels like.
Yeah, Houston or Arizona are probably 4 and 3.
I think it's Houston because they don't have a quarterback. They do have the number 2 pick, the number 12 pick. But you know what you have in Kyler, even though he's not going to be 100% Kyler until November. You don't know what Bryce Young, Will Levis, CJ Stroud is going to be, and also you're going to a bad football team. And the owner,
Agree.
And a team that's fired 3 head coaches in the last 4 years, 2 after a single season.
Part of me is that, and I don't know, I don't have any inside information. Part of me wonders how much of that is just politics with Steve Keim trying to make sure he looks.
No, I'm talking about
Houston. So the Cardinals have fired a bunch of people too.
Yeah, that's right.
So I thought you were talking about Steve Keim, who, you know, and again, this isn't just a Steve Keim thing.
But same point. It could be Nick Caserio, Jack Easterby, like that. There was a lot of that in play. That's why they
Power
got Brian. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you agree to Breech 4 is Houston?
Yes. And the only thing that blows my mind about the Texans is that they are literally in arguably the worst division in football. And they still have only managed to win 10 games over the past 3 years.
Sweet mercy. That's not very Jesus-like. What's number 3?
I think 3 is very clearly Arizona.
I don't actually. God dang it! I almost said a naughty word. I can't disagree with Brinson on that one either. Breech,
oh my God, we've already talked about the Cardinals so much, and I agree. We are all unanimous. Are we going to be unanimous all the way through? This would be a first time ever.
There's no way that 2 and 1 aren't the same.
So
let's do number 1 just to mix it up. It's like when you announce the beauty pageant winner.
Right.
You do 3 and then
down to the finalists.
I'm going to say the Panthers are 1.
Oh, now we're off. You lose. All right, go ahead, defend yourself.
You got a high draft pick, top 10 draft pick.
Yep.
A really good defense.
Yep.
And an owner who is unafraid to spend a lot of cash. The Broncos, I think, are probably.
How many quarterbacks are currently under contract? Do you know?
0. So you're sure PJ Walker's under contract?
Just one. His name is
Matt Corral. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. I mean, look,
yeah.
The quarterback situation's not great.
All right.
But there's some good free agent quarterbacks out there. So should be Thomas
there's
Edward
one.
Brady.
Okay, 2.
Derek Carr.
Is Tom Brady a free agent after this year?
Yeah. Okay. Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr.
Ryan Tannehill.
Carolina is 21st in salary cap space as we sit here, $1.6 million. But again, that could all change in the coming weeks. Yeah. Breech, you agree with that?
I have the Broncos at 1.
I do too.
I just think the Broncos got hammered by injuries. And if you have a quarterback who just improves Russell Wilson by 50%, it doesn't have to be by 100%.
50 sounds high.
You're going to win a lot more games. I mean, the defense is absolutely a playoff caliber defense. So it's just a matter of getting the offense back on track. And, you win 5 games with an offense that was absolutely craptastic. So I
don't even disagree with you, but I already can tell, and Brinson's 100% going to jump on this bandwagon, that you guys are going to treat the 2023 Denver Broncos like the 2022 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is going to be.
I will not be.
I got burnt, man. I can't.
You guys
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Although we have been having this discussion, like NC State text threads. It's like, should the school just really right now buy low on Russell Wilson, buy as low as humanly possible, and be like, Russ, we love you. Come back, put name a building after him, see if we can get some NIL money from him, et cetera, et cetera. And
it hurt.
But
I was out until you mentioned NIL money. But I mean, if that's what you're going for, yeah, you might as well butter him up.
He's got a lot of money. Sure, he's a weirdo, but whatever. The only concern is and look, yesterday changed a lot of things for me in terms of thinking about the Broncos' job and Russell Wilson, because he looked awesome at times. It was okay.
You're gonna fall for that?
No, I'm trying not to, Ryan. That's what I'm trying. I'm trying not.
I'm falling for it.
I'm all in, baby.
Right. Super Bowl Broncos next year. I was 1 year off.
I just told you guys you were going to reach.
And we both said no, and then like 30 seconds later, we're like, yes.
Yeah, you're
The rope in.
Well, that didn't take long. All right.
Oh
All right.
God.
That's so I would be fine with the Denver job being 1-2, but
the Panthers job is not a bad job.
I think, yeah, I think we have it's a pretty clear consensus. We'll see if another one opens up and whether that might slot into the rankings. Now it looks like a pretty small list of job openings in the NFL, surprisingly, for a Black Monday. That's our recap. For Breech, for Wilson, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you guys later.
Go.